up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of On the Couch Talking Sports. As always, I'm Robbie, joined by Kyle. Hey, Kyle, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm great. I'm great. You know, just living life to the fullest, or as
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
as much to the fullest as I can.
exactly.
But yeah, no, it's going well. It's going well. You know, just taking it day by day as always, and just trying as the movie as there's like the famous song says, always look on the bright side of life.
Yes, yep.
Yeah,
Was it Life of Brian? That's the one?
I never actually saw the movie. I just know the song. So
Yeah,
there
great song.
you go. Yeah, classic Robbie. Anyway, so if you've watched the last couple episodes, you guys will know that we have sort of been taking a nostalgic look back at the Wellesley High football teams from our high school career. We've already done our freshman and sophomore years, and so we wanted to continue on tonight with our junior year football team, the 2006 installment of the Wellesley Raider football team. And again, obviously kind of looking at it from two different perspectives, Kyle as a player and me from the fans' perspective. A team that went 6-5 on the year, I remember. And Kyle, I want to start with you as
Yeah.
always, and sort of kind of like we've been doing, sort of start back at sort of the beginning of the year, you know, sort of the preseason aspect, which, as we established in our sophomore year episode, is definitely something else. You know, the two-a-day practices and just, you know,
Mhm.
the grind of it all. So I was kind of curious because obviously when we talked about sophomore year, you know, you were kind of looking at it from the perspective of, you know, it's your first time on varsity and first time
Yes.
experiences. So I guess my first question for you is, heading into junior year, you know, having experienced a year on the varsity and having experienced in particular a year of, you know, preseason practices on the varsity level, sort of what were your expectations slash thoughts going into that year? What maybe did you do differently? Do differently to prepare for the season from sophomore to junior
Mhm.
year, and then also on top of that, what was sort of that junior year preseason like for you? Again, having that year of experience under your belt.
All right, so I will start off by so one thing I actually did forget to mention on the sophomore year season was so starting that year was my first year I actually did a football camp prior to that season,
Right.
which I think it definitely helped kind of get like into that mentality. So for that particular year, just a quick recap. Before going into sophomore year, I actually was at the Roxbury Latin football camp, and it was a really good camp. It was really none of the people from Wellesley were there. It was just me because I had known about it from my uncle, who coached the football team at St. Sebastian. So I had gone there for that year.
Right.
And it was a great week there, great camp, very well run. But junior year, I remember it was the first time that I'd actually gone to a football camp. I went to the Bay State camp, the one with with pretty much more of it was you know the Wellesley High football team. That was the one that they always went to, and it was cool going to that this year because I had skipped the one the year before. I just didn't even bother going to that camp. It was never a requirement to go to the camp, but I think it was kind of a nice thing to go. Like, definitely, it was like just 3 days of prepping you, and it was a really good, I think, start to kind of get to know, you know, to be with the team
Now,
before.
wasn't the sorry to cut you off there for a second, but I was just curious. Was that the camp that was run by the Wellesley High School coaches, or something?
No,
Okay.
that one.
Wasn't there a camp though that was run by like Coach Griffin, Coach Wassel, or something like that?
Yes, I think for a couple seasons, or maybe like one or two. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was called the Wing T Camp. That was
Oh, okay, got it.
that was our senior year. Yeah, I'll definitely go
Got it.
more into
Yeah,
that
yeah. Sorry,
that
didn't mean to confuse things.
no, that's okay. I actually had to think about like which year
Which
I did the
campus
camp.
which?
So I was like, I did the Roxbury Latin camp. No, wait, I did that year, so I had to like kind of rearrange everything.
Sorry. Anyway, continue.
No, it's okay. So no, that's a very good question, actually. Yeah, like I said, next episode I'll get more into the Wing T camp.
Okay.
That's a fun one to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
So this year it was the one actually it was headed by I think the Natick coach. He was like
Okay.
the former Natick coach or something like that.
Tom Lamb, I'm guessing.
Tom, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was the one like that did the
him.
warm up, with us and everything. And that was a really cool experience. And I remember before the season started, a bunch of the players had like shaved their heads. And I think like me and like maybe like one or two other people were like, nah, just wasn't really that thing. So
I would love to see you with a shaved head. What are you talking about?
I would probably look like
You in a buzz? You in a buzz? Yeah, you in a little buzz cut action? Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god, yeah. It was just funny because I remember that I think they had it. They usually had it like at like one of the players' house. It was like right before the camp started, or I think it maybe been like the day of one of the days we went to the camp. But it was just funny, like everyone comes in with like the shaved head and everything. And I get it. Like it actually does kind of help you like air out like your head while you're working really hard doing all the drills and everything. So but I was like, nah, I gotta can't touch this, no.
Can't touch this. Sorry, random song, random musical interlude there. Anyway,
we'll make it's our long-awaited musical episode of On a Couch now.
No, please, no, anything but that. No, can't take it. No.
I know we have to write all the songs and everything. Now that'd be too cumbersome.
Oh God, no, thank you. There will be no On a Couch musical at any time, let alone right now.
Maybe if we get some good singers on it, maybe we can get some other people to be us.
No, and then stop trying to sell it. Stop trying to sell it.
Oh man, one day. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So honestly, going back into that season, having been on the, on the varsity team the year prior, it is kind of a nice, like, I felt like I transitioned to it much easier because I did actually prepare more, not just through the camp, but I feel like I actually did work out more. And I think I actually even did a speed camp at one point. I did a speed camp with Coach Wassel, I believe. He had that one of the years. So after doing that and doing more lifting and more kind of jogging around town, I felt like I was definitely more prepared for that season, or just for the two-a-days especially. And it wasn't as like it's like that, it's like in a video game when your character is like going through a level and you level up and you try to go back to that same level after being like stronger though, and you just feel like you can tackle it better, like, okay, sorry, that's kind of a strange analogy, but
no, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I got you. I'm with you.
Yeah, so no, it was pretty nice transition. It was you kind of, and also the other thing about it too is that when you start on the sophomore team, you feel like the smallest person, or not smallest, like physically smallest person, but you feel like the youngest.
I was about to say you and small don't go together.
But it's just kind of nice. This time you're like, okay, you're kind of like middle of the road right there. You're like, okay,
you're an upperclassman. You're not the top dog, but you're like the next level dog.
Yeah, so you're kind of in like a comfy spot when you go in. You're not as like nervous. You're not as like, oh my god, what is this like?
Oh.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, I'm looking at that season from sort of from a player's perspective. Geez, from a fan's perspective, and I honestly gotta say, jumping into the regular season now, right off the bat was the night game that year, and it was against Braintree that year. I remember it was probably of our like high school career, it was probably like the most thrilling night game. Like I feel like, because I feel like if I remember correctly, we were like down like late in the game,
Mhm.
and then we like scored a touchdown at the end and won by like we won by. I actually looked up the score to confirm we won by 1 point, 21-20. I remember that year in the night game. So just really exciting. So obviously, yeah. I mean, like I said, from a fan's perspective, it was a thriller. I can only imagine what it was like from a player's perspective. Just kind of take us through before I get into some more games, at least that were memorable for me that year. Sort of take us through that year's night game, what you remember about it from a player's perspective, and what it was like to again sort of come out with another win in the night game, which is always a big deal.
Yeah, no, it was a great feeling. You're right. It was a very close game, and it was just like, yeah, I guess like I said before, it's just kind of different when you come into it, and you kind of like you're not like a young freshman. You're not like a just starting sophomore player that's just like you're all wide eyed. You're like, ooh, this is pretty cool. No, it's like you kind of like you've been at this point. It's like you're 2 years in. You know the ropes. And it was just kind of a yeah it was a nice experience to have um, the Friday night game. I love the night. Yeah, those are always one of my favorite games. Is the night game, the Friday night lights, and it's interesting because I feel like I'm trying to remember the junior for me was a little more foggy just because it's like it was kind of almost like a semi repeat of like sophomore year because I had been on the JV team and I don't think I really got any playing time in the varsity, but um, I just remember, yeah, the night game was pretty. It was pretty cool. You're right, like being a very close game. And then it's interesting because you go to both games. You have to worry about going to the varsity game. Then you have to go to the JV game, which is usually I think on like a Monday
Okay.
or like a
Wasn't
usually
sometimes like it was on like Saturdays or Mondays, I feel like usually,
yes.
right?
Yeah, it was either like Monday early evening or like or you're right, like a Saturday morning. So
Yeah.
it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool being at like all those games. Like the schedule was very busy. It was a very busy schedule um, with all those in mind. So
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, the and we'll save Thanksgiving for the end, obviously.
oh yeah,
But for
totally.
me, the other two games that I went to that year were unfortunately both losses. So I guess that
Mhm.
was a bad luck charm. But yeah, I know you guys. Sort of the first year of our high school career, though, you guys lost to Weymouth. I remember you guys. It was a home game, and you guys. It was a really
Yeah.
close game, but you guys weren't. Weymouth. And Weymouth actually, I think feel like that was kind of like the time where Weymouth started to turn a corner and become like a much better program because like they've been kind of like bottom of the pack like our first couple of years, and then like junior and senior year they
Oh
actually like
yes.
turned into like a pretty good program in
Hmm.
the carry division. And so there was that game, and then the Natick game. I know, and the interesting thing about the Natick game, I don't know how much you remember about it, but we got down like big. I remember in the Natick game, like I think it was
Hmm.
like 27-7 or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that. And then we staged like an epic comeback and like got to within a touchdown, and then Natick scored, and then we got back to within a touchdown again, and then Natick scored, and that was sort of
Yeah.
the end of that game. But it was still, I mean, again, it was just fun to watch. It was just fun to be out there, watching, your
Hmm.
classmates, your friends, you and among others, and going to those games is always a good time from a fan's perspective. But for you, from a player's perspective, sort of again, we'll save Thanksgiving, till sort of the next segment here. But for
Yeah.
you, sort of besides the night game, what and Thanksgiving, what other games for you kind of stood out during that junior season from what you remember?
Hmm. Okay, so the varsity games that was a little trickier. I don't quite remember as much the varsity games. I just remember it was yeah, I don't know. I don't know that season overall for me was just kind of it was a bit of a it was a bit more of a blur when I compare it to like the freshman, sophomore, and senior. I don't know, like junior. Not that it was a bad season. I don't want people to think like, oh, I didn't like that season. It was a horrible season, but it was. I don't know. I just don't. It just didn't stick with me as we. It just didn't stick with me quite as much as some of the other seasons. I think one of the games I do remember was I think it was like a Monday night game, and I forget what team we were facing. Maybe it was like Milton. I think it actually might have been like a Milton. It was like a Monday night Milton JV game, and I
Uh,
remember, yeah,
oh, JV.
yeah.
Oh, wow. You guys play a night game for JV?
It was like early evening. That's
Oh,
how it
okay.
was. It wasn't like under the lights or anything. It wasn't like that spectacular or anything. But we did have certain games that were that either were like Saturday morning or Monday
Right,
like
right,
early evening.
right. Okay,
And
I'm
actually,
with you.
yeah. And what was interesting too is though a lot of those Monday games was if I remember correctly, we didn't even have to practice those days. We the varsity and the freshmen would practice, but the JV would be like, nope, we just like we'd suit up and just go right to the field. So
Go play, yeah.
yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like right after school. It was kind of a nice transition, but it was very easy going. I think the JV experience was definitely the most memorable for me that year because that's where I got the most playing time. And oh yeah, but sorry, I think I was on a story. It was like one of the games and I remember we were up against like Milton, and so when I was on when I was on the JV team, or pretty much throughout all 4 years of football, I was a defensive tackle, and I remember there was like I went up their line, and their line like there was like the guys were actually pretty good size, and I remember I had gone up against one of the players, and we almost kind of got in a fight a little bit.
Oh,
Like the player
jeez.
got like kind of pissed off at me because I was like I kept like kind of leaning into them, and then it got to the point where you're gonna laugh at this one. Uh, I think
I'm
basically
laughing already.
like during one of the plays, this guy got so mad, and he actually ended up like shoving me over or something like that. And I looked up because I thought I was like doing like some kind of mistake, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And then one of the other players, it was actually a Kyle. There was another Kyle on the team. He
Oh,
goes,
yeah.
Kyle, you don't say sorry. Why are you saying sorry to that guy? Like, that guy's being a jerk.
Okay. And I say this as someone that has known you since the eighth grade. That story does not surprise me in the least. That story, the most surprising part of that story was that somebody actually got pissed off at you, Kyle. Because you are, and I mean this in all sincerity, you are like the nicest guy that I know. And like the fact that like anyone actually like got like upset at you or anything, like just boggles my mind. Like it's like that meme like the guy's mind just like blown. Like the fact that somebody actually got like pissed off at Kyle. Susan, the fact that you apologized to him, it's classic you. I love it. I love it. That is great. Well, and I kind of wanted to use that story to kind of like segue in, if it's okay, segue into the
Yeah.
next segment. Before we get to sort of the Thanksgiving that year, I did kind of want to, because I know you sort of raved about your JV experience that year. So besides that Milton guy, what other memories what were some other memories that stand out to you from your JV experience during that '06 season?
Oh man. Oh, I remember one of the home games that we had. This was a Saturday morning game, and I remember this was one of my best victories I think of the year. Was we were going up against Framingham, and I remember like as a defensive tackle, I remember there was like that was one of my, I think probably one of the best games that I played throughout maybe like all 4 years of my of my football career. I remember there was a moment where I got through the line and I had an assisted tackle, uh, and I got like one of the running backs. So I thought that was pretty cool.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about that. Uh, no, that's great. Yeah, I
Oh,
think it's interesting because I know I came that year to the JV game against Needham, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I think
you did. That's
I
right.
feel like I came to one of the other JV, like another JV game, like one of the home JV games that year. But I can't
Yeah.
remember quite. But I want to kind of again sort of segue now into Thanksgiving time. That I actually want to start with that JV game because I was there as a fan. Again watching you and watching the other guys. And I think you guys won that game, if I remember correctly. I think you guys won it. It was
Yes.
a close game, but you guys pulled it out at the end. So I just I kind of want to just open it up to you and that again, for those of you who don't know, just really quickly, for those of you who don't know, if you didn't see our past episodes on this, the JV and the freshmen always play the Saturday before Thanksgiving in Needham. And so I sort of went through that as a player freshman year, playing for the freshman team like Kyle. And then
Yeah.
junior year, like I said, I attended the game, that year's JV game as a fan. But yeah, I just kind of want to just throw it to you, Kyle. And, when you look back on that year's JV game, what sort of sticks out for you from that year's game?
Well, it was actually a pretty important game, mainly because, so yeah, no, I mean, like when we pulled out the win, that was fantastic. Just so the overall tone of the game, it was really great. But the that particular JV game was a very interesting one because it was actually the final official game that I was on the JV team. Because
True.
after that,
Yeah, yeah.
went to the varsity, and also to add kind of like another layer to that, it was actually also so I don't know if you guys knew. I think I mentioned it back in the episode we talked about the sophomore year. So the JV team, the head coach of the JV team was Coach Ruben,
Yeah.
and it was actually his last game that he coached for
That's
JV.
right. That's right. Yeah, because he left after our junior year. Because I remember, because obviously, as I mentioned before, he was my guidance counselor, and yeah, senior year I had a new guidance counselor, which I'm not to go off the rails too much here, but it was kind of interesting. Like when you're trying to apply for college with a hello,
Oops.
camera down, camera
Camera
down.
down. Okay, we did it. We did it. We're
But
good.
like when you're trying, that's okay. Technology, it's just lovely. But like when you're trying to apply for
Thanks, got it.
college with a brand new guidance counselor your senior year, it can lead to some hiccups, to put it nicely.
Yeah,
But it ended up working out.
that's good.
But anyway, yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to get off on that little tangent there. But
No, no, no,
anyway, continue.
no, it's all good. Yeah, it was so it was actually kind of a big deal. Because I really liked the whole vibe of the JV team. That was the second year I had done it, and I was actually a little bit sad that it was the last game. And we had really, I feel like we were just such a great team, and we had just, we had just such a great vibe, and I feel like that was the most I had. That was probably the most playing time I think I had received actually throughout all 4 years, and I was gonna miss that. I definitely was. And I'll get more into that in senior year, because that was a roller coaster year, man. That's a whole other.
I was about to
Yeah.
say you, and I don't want to. We'll sort of save it all for next episode. But you almost got a chance to relive that experience senior year.
Oh, that was very interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll save that for the next episode. We'll save
Yep.
that for the next episode.
Yep.
Little teaser. Little tease there, folks. Yeah,
storyline.
exactly.
Yeah, so it was overall. It was. So I did get. I was like, oh yeah, this really is. It really sunk in. I think after that, I was like, this is it. No more JV team. It was a great run. I think it was a great cap to the whole kind of JV season, the JV career, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it was a really good game. Yeah.
Definitely. And then that leads us into the main event, the varsity Thanksgiving game from that year, which was held in Needham and which was held on one of the rainiest, yuckiest days I think I've ever experienced in my entire life. I did go to that game as a fan. The only good thing about that day was the fact that you guys won. Other than that, it was raining, it was cold, it was disgusting. It was just the worst weather day. Like, I would have preferred snow. I honestly would have preferred snow to that day. The snow is actually even lovely snow a lot of times can be, very kind of like pleasant and lovely to be in. That was just so uncomfortable. But like I said, you guys won in Needham that year. I think it was like 14-6. It was like it really was like a mud bowl, like rainy style, like really sort of, just like low scoring affair. I remember. So like I said, the one good thing about the day is that you guys pulled out the W. That's obviously and it was your second straight win on Thanksgiving too. So that was perfect. But yeah, so let me toss it to you, who was on the sidelines for that lovely, lovely day. What was it like for you that year as a player to be involved in that, and to be again for a third year, second as a varsity player, involved in the historic rivalry?
It was great. It was a great win. And that had actually, if I remember correctly, I think our season was, I believe, 6-5.
Yeah.
So that actually that was like, oh, that kind of turned it into like a winning season.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you got the winning record because of that win. So.
Yeah, it was a good feeling. It was we barely scraped through, and it was also actually the last year, the last Thanksgiving game that I experienced on the team at Needham. So
that's true.
That was another. So it was like a kind of a a lot of like finals, like, oh, the last time we do this kind of deal.
Yeah, there you go. And it was great to see you guys get another win against them. Obviously, anytime you could beat Needham, especially on their home field, is great. And the last question I wanted to ask you was sort of just from your perspective, from a player's perspective, who were some of the top players on the varsity that year, and who are some of the guys that really because I know there are a few names that I could think of, but I'm curious to sort of get your perspective again as a teammate, as a player. Who are some of the top guys for you that season really stood out for that varsity squad?
I remember Mark. Mark was a really cool guy. I had actually known.
Mark Stickenberger. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I had I kind of knew him. I think a little bit prior. So actually, his family was good friends with my dad actually. So my dad knew his family already. So Mark and I were already pretty cool and everything. I was like, hey Mark, what's up? And I'm trying to remember who else was. Hold on, I'm trying to remember who else was on the. I also was a big fan of Connor
Green.
Both
Connor Green, yeah. Connor Murphy.
Connor Murphy. Yep, Connor Murphy was awesome. And also Connor Green.
Connor Green. I literally just said that 5 seconds ago.
You did say that. Sorry.
I said Connor Murphy.
So both Connors were amazing. it was cool because all these seniors, I had played with them on the JV team the year prior, so we were already actually, I feel like, pretty tight. Like in that sense, like we had already. It was cool having them be like, "Oh, yeah, you guys are the captains now" and everything. So I thought that was I'm trying to think I'm trying to remember who else was on. Who else was in that year?
So I know, I mean, the starting quarterback obviously was J.D. Walker.
J.D.
Uh,
Walker. Yep, that's
Nick
right.
Linkow was the kicker, I remember. And then
Lincoln.
Nick Linkow.
Oh yeah, he was a really good kicker. Yeah.
Yeah. And then David Kamara, Danny Pollock were a couple other names that I
Oh
remember
yeah.
from
So
that
Kamara
team.
had like just a quick thing. Like Kamara, I remember like he was, first of all, a really nice dude, really incredible
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
He had this incredible play. I can just barely remember it. It was one of the night games. I want to say it was in like either Framingham or Braintree. No, probably Framingham actually, because I think Braintree played us right on the Friday night game.
Braintree was the home night game that year.
Okay, so I think this was in Framingham. He had this
No,
incredible.
Framingham was home that year too.
Oh what?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking. Oh, maybe I'm thinking Norwood. Actually, this might
No,
even
yeah,
have.
yeah.
He had this incredible touchdown. I just remember that. Like I remember like there was one game where like I think we were playing like defense, and he had just like broken through the line. He just picked up the ball and just bam, right to the touch. It was just, it was
Oh,
great.
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the big things I remember. I'm pretty sure that was junior year because I know he was there. Our sophomore or junior year. I'm pretty sure that moment was junior year, but it was so cool. It was one of the coolest plays that I remember actually throughout the 4 years.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it was a solid team that year. I was really happy. I thought it was just an overall great season. So
Definitely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. We're going to sort of begin to wind down our episode as we always do. And I'll go first to you, Kyle, tonight for another rousing edition of the Sue's Reviews. So what is your review for tonight?
okay, so tonight, I am literally just playing these out of my butt. So all right, I guess all right. I'll talk about this game since I already talked about Zelda. I talked about the collector's edition. I wanted to go briefly on this game here. This one's called Zelda Four Swords Adventures. This is the one of the few Zelda multiplayer games. So what you do is it's basically a level by level game. You have these pretty big levels. The levels actually take a while to conquer. It's like any other. It's pretty much like your classic top-down Zelda game, like Link to the Past, like the first game. But what's the big hook on this one is that it's multiplayer. You can play up to 4 players. So what you would do? I'll show you this really quick. Sorry. Just
Okay.
so what you do here is the way you play this game. It's just such a cool concept. It's you would basically you'd get a Game Boy Advance, right? And the Game Boy Advance would act as a controller. So you take the controller. There's like a little special connection you have to get, and you hook it up to the GameCube system, and basically you use the Game Boy Advance as one of the controllers for the game. And what you can do with it is you can actually use the screen. If your character goes in like a house or in a cave, then you're like basically you go from the TV where the whole game is played. It's not like a split screen game. It's a game where you see all 4 of the characters you control. And when you go inside, you actually get to go. You look on the Game Boy. So it's kind of this like really interesting multiplayer adventure style game. You collect items like in the other Zelda games. You don't save the items though. You have to kind of find the items again or find new items throughout. It really depends on the level. You solve puzzles. You really have to actually use a lot of teamwork when you're playing this game. So it's a very good kind of team building style game. So it's a lot of fun. If you're a Zelda fan, highly recommend it. The only thing is you gotta find if you can do this game in single player by using the GameCube controller, which I'll show you right here. This is it. But if you want to do multiplayer, you have to do it through these. You have to find 4 of these, which can be a bit of money, but that's probably the only big problem I have with the game is that there's so many other accessories to play multiplayer that the idea was cool, but you have to buy so much. You have to buy the connection. You have to buy the 4 cables. You have to buy the 4 Game Boys, and that's I'd say the biggest detractor from the game. That's the only thing I really don't like about it. But otherwise, if you can get past that, it's a great game. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Another rousing review by Kyle. So, so now we're gonna move on to my final thoughts. And my final thought is that slowly but surely, live sports are starting to come back. You had Korean and Taiwanese baseball, which the Korean League is being shown on ESPN here. There was golf and NASCAR events this weekend, albeit with no fans. But also, I kind of found myself in the absence of, really truly live sports. I found myself this weekend watching German soccer. The German soccer league came back this weekend, and so I found myself the games they were showing them on Fox, and so I found myself watching a little bit just to sort of get some live sports back into my life during these trying times. So hopefully they'll continue to come back more and more. Hopefully, the major sports that we all sort of really tune into will start to come back, but
Yes.
It sort of remains to be seen when and how that's going to happen. But it was kind of nice, to at least see a sport that, I'm obviously the baseball has been nice. I've been watching some of the ESPN broadcasts of the Korean baseball games, which has been nice. But soccer, I mean, I'll tune into soccer occasionally, depending on who's playing and stuff like that. So like I said, I found myself tuning in on both Saturday and Sunday morning. So it was nice, sort of a break from the current goings on in the world. So that's all I got, and that's all we got for tonight. So as always, folks, thanks for tuning in. As always, we appreciate it, and as always, stay safe out there. And like we said, next week. We can already tell you that we're going to be discussing our senior year, so definitely tune in for that. As we sort of rounded out our high school football career, player and fan wise. So definitely be taking a look at that next time. Anyway, until next time, for Kyle, I'm Robbie, signing off from chairs and from On a Couch Talking Sports. We will see you next time. Like I said, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you.